Hey, Kime. Hey, Branson. How y'all doing?
All right. How you doing?
So far, so good. Morning, Kime. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Doing well. That yesterday's class was really interesting. And in our first probably one or two classes that we took, I was trying to focus on my direct customers. And I was like, how in the world? But everybody had an opinion, and I've got 900 different recipes. And so once I backed off and thought about the fact that that was actually utilized for my wholesale accounts, then I could pinpoint where their pain points were, and I could actually dwell in on exactly what they needed to make these interactions and make these accounts viable for both those. So then it became more of a partnership, but utilizing that strategy and that thought process worked out tremendously. So that was a big benefit for that.
Fantastic. Glad to hear it. It's like I don't know, chess game is probably not the right word, but it takes more than you would think. I think that you know, I was not brought up in a business environment. So my perspective on business was, you put your stuff out there and it sells, right? You go to your little store or whatever. Never really gave much thought to it. But there's really a lot more to it, especially if you're physically making your own product or offering your own service. Who are you going to compare to? I mean, you're not your competitors. You're you, and all the good and bad that entails.
Right.
Right.
Sure. Yep.
So,
Indeed.
hey, April, how are you?
I'm gonna go start.
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
All right. Fantastic. All right.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you have to remind me again. Who is MLLEONA1?
Hey, that's Martha Mobley from Lewisboro with the NC State.
Martha, I gotta remember that. I see that mile MLLEONA1. It's like, who is that? It's a secret agent.
Tell me, how long will this class last? How many? What? Just this 1 week, or how long?
It's 10 weeks long.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. So sometime in March. Good Lord, and the creek don't rise and all that kind of stuff. Hey, Samara, how are you? All right. How's your renewal going, your renovation or build out, however you want to put it? You're muted. So let me get you unmuted. Okay. There you go.
Think, knock on wood, please, for me. But I think that the stumbling, I'm hoping, is behind me. I tried a test batch situation with just water last week, and every piece of equipment worked fine. And then I put product in the pot, and every piece of equipment broke. So Monday was an expensive day with service technicians and an expensive day of emotional real estate in my body. But yesterday I was able to successfully get through a micro batch, and I'm hoping it's smooth sailing from here.
Do you have a bottling facility? Is that what you have?
Yeah, basic. It's not like a warehouse level. I mean, I'm still relatively small potatoes and compared to that, but it is a full production kitchen at this point. And I have a bottle filler that I have demonstrated can work the way it was advertised. It's
Wow.
a neat to clean because my product is, that's not like heavy viscous like honey, but it's viscous.
Yeah.
And so the pump is able to prime, but at the end of the cycle, getting it clean, the pump doesn't have enough oomph to pull water through after having poured syrup for an hour.
I see.
And so that's the thing that I had to navigate, how to help it along in that final phase. But I think I figured it out. So
Fantastic. Well, thanks everybody for coming. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I don't know if you all are familiar, some of you are, with the concept of a category or category design. And so this is, I think the best way to explain it is there an opportunity for your product or service to really create a whole new category of product. You know, the example you'll see in this video in a little bit, they talk about the Dodge Caravan, the Dodge minivan, how that did not exist before as a category, right? And it's been a category for more than 40 years now. And as the category leader, I think it's Chrysler, Plymouth, one of them, turned out, they're still the category leader. They invented it, they created it, they're the first one to make one, and they have kept a very large percentage of that category's sales. So today we're going to talk about a way to purposely understand category design conceptually, and there'll be some examples of kind of how you go about it, the process you go ahead. So we'll go ahead and get started with this. I personally think it's really cool. I like it a lot. All right. So let's see here. Share screen. Okay. Okay, there we go. So can you guys see my screen? No, I don't think so. Let me try one more time here. Share screen. Okay. Sorry, I'm having more difficulty than I should. I'm not quite sure why. Okay, let's go back here. Sorry about this, folks.
Saw it
All
before, but it went away.
Okay, I'm going to try again here. For some reason, it's not showing up right here. Let's see. Okay. Oh. Can you guys see it by any chance? I don't think so.
No,
Okay.
not anymore.
Keep trying here.
Yeah, it had popped up, but then it went away.
Story of my life. Okay, here we go. We got it now.
Yep, there it is.
Okay, so this is part one. We're going to do half today and half tomorrow. This is when it says become a category king or queen, it's about dominating, it's about creating and dominating a category that either exists already and you want to go after it, or you want to create your own category.
So I want to walk you through the basic ideas about what category design is all about and how to think that way and how to how to take your company in that direction if that's something you want to do. So this is basically an overview, but some behind the scenes stuff about the book too. Just want to start out with a few reasons why it's important to think this way. And
Is that full screen for everybody?
It is for me.
Okay. Let me try something
Yes.
here. It is? Okay, good.
It's full screen.
So
then
one
it's
is,
supposed to put the video on a smaller screen. Could you make the video the full screen?
I can try. Let's see.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Perfect.
Yay.
everybody in this room probably knows and feels that it's way easier to start a company today than it was 20 years ago. Grab a laptop and a credit card, get on AWS, join up with somebody like Techstars. A couple people can have a company up and running in no time that can compete with the giants of the world. But what that means is that if anybody has a really interesting idea in an interesting new space, it quickly looks like this, with 1,000 other companies piling in to do what you're already trying to do. So it becomes really hard to stand out unless you are establish yourselves as some kind of a leader, a thought leader, a category king in a particular space. And another reason to try to go for this idea of category king and category creation is that in any market that's really that's digital, it's a winner-take-all kind of situation. And you can measure that any way you want. Market share, you look at on-demand transportation, and Uber is the obvious category king in this space. It takes 73% of the market share, Lyft 23%. And so market value is another way you could measure it. And Airbnb in particular space worth $30-some billion. When HomeAway was sold, it was worth about $4 billion. Whether it's you measure it by total usage in the space of online storage, Dropbox kind of identified the category and came to dominate it. And even with all of Google's power and capabilities, it still only has 70% of the usage of this kind of online storage space. And another interesting reason for wanting to be a category king is the category kings tend to attract the best people. And here's a way we know about this. About a year ago, LinkedIn decided to do a study using its data to try to figure out what were the 25 companies that the most talented people in the world want to work for. And when a little background story on this, when LinkedIn wanted to do this study, they ran the data, but they also brought in a woman named Susie Welch to analyze the data and write about it. Now, Susie Welch is a pretty famous business journalist. She used to be the editor of Harvard Business Review. She also happens to be married to Jack Welch, who was the former CEO of General Electric and also kind of a business character in his own right. And so we didn't even really know about this project. And then one of my co-authors, Al Ramadan, got a call one day from Susie Welch saying, we're doing this study, and I happen to have been reading your book. And I noticed that if you map the companies that are landing on that list of the ones people want to work for to the idea of category kings, most of the companies on the list are identifiably category kings. And she wanted to talk to us about like the dynamics and why that was. But towards the end of the interview, Al thought he'd ask, he says to Susie, well, how did you end up running across our book? And this was one of my favorite things I ever heard about the book was she said, well, my husband's Jack Welch. And I was like, yeah, I know who Jack Welch is. And she said, well, Jeff Bezos gave your book to my husband and said, you should read this. And then my husband gave it to me and said, you should read this. So that's apparently we're floating around in some pretty high, stratospheric circles there. But the bottom line here is that is also a really good reason to want to identify yourselves as this category king.
A little bit braggy there.
So I wanted to walk you back a little bit because this is not something that was just based on like anecdotal evidence or just our particular instincts. When we started this project, we really wanted to back it up with some real data and background information. I'll walk you through this crazy chart here. We took data from thousands of venture-backed companies and just ran it and asked a whole lot of questions of this data and trying to just see what kind of patterns we could get out of it. And we ran across this one thing that we thought was kind of interesting, but we didn't quite know what it meant, but we'll get to that in a second. But what this ends up showing is that when we looked at the value created by venture-backed companies after they went public, post-IPO value, we noticed this pattern that if companies that went public before they were 6 years old, the trend line basically had them dropping in value from IPO time to after the post-IPO value tended to go negative. Companies that went public between 6 and 10 years old created enormous post-IPO value. And companies that went public after they were 10 years old tended to basically flatline. Didn't really lose value, they didn't really excite anybody either. And we wondered what this meant. We took it to places like Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan, the investment bankers there, and we said, we showed them this, and they said, this matches our instincts, this matches what we see. We never ran the data, but actually it's really interesting that, this kind of proves out, but kind of makes sense to us. But they didn't know why this was happening either. So we went searching, and we ran the next step when we asked why this was happening. Oh, by the way, yeah, here's this is a little reminder of that 6 to 10, some of the biggest successes. Facebook went public at 8 years, Amazon at 8 years, Salesforce at 6. Uber in 2018 is 9 years old, so it suggests that if they go public in a year and a half, just don't buy the stock. So we asked, why is this happening? And that led us to the work of an economist named Paul Gurowski. And Paul Gorosky studied category life cycles. And he ended up creating this very simple chart that has 2 steps to it, and I'll walk you through each one. So the first step is and this makes intuitive sense if you think about it. When a new category gets identified, and you're down here basically, and one company or 2 companies figure out that there's some new invention, some new cool thing to do, there's hardly any companies in a space. As soon as, think back to that chart with like a zillion companies on it, as soon as it starts to be identified that it's interesting space, zillions of companies jump in, right? You get this spike in the number of companies in the space, and then you get this time period when the number of companies starts to drop off because 1 or 2 kings solidify. They either acquire some of the other companies in the space or the other companies go out of business. And so the number of companies in that category starts to fall into a smaller number. And then over time, it kind of flatlines. It kind of stabilizes at a few companies that are dominating that space. The other half of the curve goes like this, which is when a category is created, obviously it's worth pretty much nothing. And it takes a while for people to get the idea and it starts to have some real value to that category. And then all of a sudden it catches on and it spikes. The total value of that category starts to spike. And over time it matures and levels off. So Gorosky put these together and created this chart of what a category life cycle looks like. And as you can imagine, the value is still climbing. The number of companies pile in, even though the value is not there. Suddenly the category catches on, king emerges, and it consolidates. But the category is actually taking off now and spiking. And then you get to some place where there's 2 or 3 companies dominating, and the category is pretty much mature and flatlining. And as you can probably tell, when you look at that chart and you say, well, that kind of overlaps to this. And it makes some sense because in this particular phase, the category is very uncertain and who's going to be the king is very uncertain. So you get situations like Groupon going public when it was 3 years old, and you've got a category that looked really promising but ended up not being so promising, and a company that went public at a huge valuation and ended up tanking afterwards. In this particular time period, you end up with 1 or 2 companies emerging that seem like they're going to be the obvious kings of this spiking category, and investors are very excited. That's when you want to put money in a company, and so the value starts to climb because it's got a lot of upside. And then in this last phase over here, what tends to happen is that as the category sort of matures and flatlines and the number of players consolidates, it's all of the excitement is out of it. It's just basically a mature stock at play at that point. So that's why when companies go public when late, it doesn't do bad, it doesn't do good. It's just that all of the information is already there, right? You're not really investing in something that's going to spike. So we still, we're asking the question of, but why is that happening? Why do those time frames make sense? And that led us to brain science, of all things. And I had a role in this because this is a book that I wrote, came out in 2011, that was about the intersection of brain science and computer science and how those two fields were learning from each other. And by doing this book, it plugged me into the neuroscience community. And of course, we were big fans of Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, which is all about our brains and how they work and the biases that we have inside of our brains. And so I took the data and the research we had done to a few of my neuroscience friends and said, what does this mean to you? How does this map to anything that you understand? And they said, absolutely, it does. And they started talking to us about the cognitive biases in our brains. And cognitive biases are these things in our brains that make us make decisions that are not based on logic. We actually don't make decisions based on facts. We make decisions based on these biases that get embedded in our brains. And there's some 50 of them. Like one is the choice supportive bias, which just means that if you buy a particular product, you tend to think it's the best product because you were so smart because you bought it. It's just out of a flywheel that goes around. And groupthink is what it sounds like. We tend to be influenced by what people think around us. And these biases influence our decisions in a very, very meaningful way. So there's another aspect of things that the neuroscience are talking to us about, and this leads us back to some of the category conversation, that when there's too much choice, when there's a lot of stuff out there, our brains categorize things. And that's why, for instance, when you go in the grocery store, it's not arranged alphabetically. It's arranged by categories, because that's how you think. And you want to go in and you want to find the spaghetti sauce, and you go to the aisle where the spaghetti sauce is, and then you make the choice out of a bunch of things that are on the shelf. Interestingly, in business, a line item on a budget is essentially a category. And that's how, again, we think when we run a company. We need, I know I need some public relations, for my company. And then you think, what's the company that's the most, the dominant one, or the one that, is most important for me to engage in that category. So a winning category strategy actually creates a new line item. If you're a B2B company, creates a new line item on somebody's budget. And so when we create these categories in our minds, and our biases tend to put one or two category kings in that space. When you go to the spaghetti sauce aisle, you probably think there's a spaghetti sauce that you think is the best one or the best value for you to buy, and it's already in your brain. You're not going to go there every time and stare at every one and read the ingredients and look at the prices and decide which one to buy. And here's some, just some categories that are, we pretty obviously have category kings in, and they establish themselves in our minds as those kings. And so once we have those, established as those winners in categories, those biases tend to keep them there. So what that all comes back to is the idea that if you're the CEO of a company, one of your jobs is to actually exploit these brain shortcuts. It's actually to condition our minds and make us have those biases in our brains, and so that you can be seen as this category king and embed people in people's brains. And the back end of this that we got from as we talked to the neuroscience folks, is that it takes sustained effort. It's not something that happens with one TV commercial on a Super Bowl. It happens by over and over emphasizing that particular product and that brand and in convincing people that space exists and that you're the king in it. And if you think of the bell curve of the population, you're going to capture some of those early adopters, in those first couple of years. But what happens is that to get to the heart and the meat of the bell curve of what you're trying to influence actually takes that sustained effort over some 6 to 10 years. And that's why we end up with these kinds of time frames that tend to work for any industry, any consumer products, business to business products. It seems to be, this is how fast the majority of people's minds can move. So as a CEO or a company founder, I mean, basically, what it comes down to is maybe your most important job is to condition people's brains. This is Steve Jobs conditioning our brains. And when he got up on stage, this is classic Steve Jobs, when he got up on stage to introduce the iPad, he literally got up and he said, "We are creating a new category of product." And he said, we have this new age of digital media. We consume this digital media. The phone is too small, the screen's too small to really enjoy, video and things like that. The laptop's too big, it's too clunky, you can't really sit on your couch and lounge and do it. And so we're going to introduce this new category of product that's made for our times. And it's this thing called the tablet, and our product is called the iPad. And he established the idea. We didn't know we even had that problem before Steve Jobs got up on stage and said, you have this problem. And then we all go, oh yeah, actually I do have that problem. I would like to have something like that. And by identifying the category and identifying the problem, he convinced us that he had the solution because he was the only one that was smart enough to figure it out. And we go, yeah, no, I guess I do need an iPad. I'll go out and buy one. $400, great. Importantly, though, the idea is, if you think even of the Steve Jobs example, when you think about category, it's not just about the message. It's actually about what you do. It's the strategy of your company. And it informs everything about your company. And we use this chart. This is in the book. And let me explain. So, as many of you probably know very well, right? You know, when a company starts, it basically starts with product design. It's a couple of people have a good idea. We can build this thing, or we see this opportunity, and you go and you build a product, and that's what you're focused on, creating this cool new thing. And then usually the second thing that happens is, okay, I've got this cool new thing that I've created. Now I need a company to, build it, sell it, do all those things that a company does. And you start thinking about what kind of company do I want to have? Where do I want to put it? What kind of people do I want to have in it? What's the logo look like? All those things are designing your company. Now, I would guess that most of you and most people who ever start a company basically stop there. Got a product, we got a company, go. And what we found when we studied all of these companies was that the companies that really succeed and really blow it out have a third thing that they think about. And they think about the space they're going into and how to influence it and how to create it and how to develop that category in people's minds. And by seeing the space, by understanding what the space is and what the problem is they're going to solve, it actually comes back and influences all these other things. Because when you see this very clearly, it helps tell you what kind of product to build. And when you see this space very clearly, it helps tell you what kind of company to build. But also, it's a constant motion because whatever, the product you've built and the company you've built help influence what the category is that you're looking at. But all of these pieces need to go together to help you to have a really forward-thinking company strategy. So if you want to do this, how do you start to think this way? The idea of looking for what's missing. And that's, if you're looking at a market and it's already there and you're saying, well, that looks like a big market. This whole idea that has been around for a long time of, oh, that's a big opportunity. There's space for, several winners in that particular space. That's just total bull. It's just not, it's not true in digital markets because we go back to in digital markets, winners tend to take all. And so what you want to do is you want to look for a space that's new and that's missing. This is what Airbnb did when they got started. If you think about the story of Airbnb, these two guys in San Francisco had an apartment, a couple of designers, and there was a conference in town that all the hotels were sold out. And they thought, they didn't have much money. They thought, well, hey, we could blow up a couple of air mattresses, put them on the floor, and serve Captain Crunch in the morning, and put this on Craigslist, and maybe we'll get a couple people that would want to, rent this from them. It worked. They quickly realized they thought this, and actually the whole company in the beginning was geared towards the idea of creating space when there were big conferences in town, in any particular town. But they thought realized that there was this missing thing of how do you have these sort of short-term opportunities to rent a place when hotels don't work and you don't want to have a long-term rental on something like HomeAway. And they constantly saw a bigger and bigger missing as they went. But this was a new space that they created. In fact, at one point, I was at this big business conference and sat next to the CEO of Marriott, and I turned to him and I said, well, you guys must really hate Airbnb, don't you? And he surprised me, and he said, no, we don't hate them all. We don't even feel like we compete with them. He said, we hate like Expedia and Travelocity because they their fees take a portion of our revenue, but these guys, we don't care because they see it as a completely different space.
Okay. So, any reaction, thoughts? Anybody see, an opportunity for what they're doing to fit into this space? Into the idea of a category?
Think, Dr. Trace, I think about a couple of different things after listening to the videos. Number one, how a simple idea can kind of turn into something that never existed before with the Airbnb. I know it was thought process behind it, but I don't think they were overthinking it. With the air mattresses and the Captain Crunch, that really turned into a big thing.
Right.
I started off with an idea to host a Purity Prom event, and it was kind of new. It's still new, but I feel like it's challenging. The thought process behind the creativity, that was easy, but now getting people on board, that is what's challenging for me. I know we have to be intentional and we have to identify and address the problem, which I've done that. And then I have explained the solution, which is the event that I host every year. But it's still challenging to me. When I talk to other people, I've been to several different schools, and the thing that they will tell me about, the common theme is the funding. Number one, the funding to get people on board. And number two, the people that say that they believe and support what it is that the movement that I founded is about, they're kind of not really showing that they're really interested in it. So how do you bridge that gap?
Well, I think that, I think that, and I'd be happy to talk to you one-on-one on this also. What you're looking for and what you're talking about is what I refer to as product market fit or service market fit. Who is your people? And, one of the things we talked about the other day was calling a bunch of people, calling 50 or 100 people and really listening to what they say. So my instincts tell me that your sample size is too small. You haven't talked to enough people really. And what you should be able to do if you get enough input is iterate and polish your service, your idea in response to what customers seem to be responsive to. That's really the key learning. How do I get customers to follow up or to engage? And it may be after you do a lot of these, and when I say a lot, I think a minimum of 50, you may find that it's not going to work, or you may find it's going to work great. But I think your sample size is too small, and you're wondering about things from not enough potential customer input. That's my gut reaction. But let's talk about that one-on-one, if you like, if you want to schedule something with me and we can talk about that.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So this is in the category of I'm out of my mind and I just want to share something with you guys. So some of you have been hearing about text to imaging, AI, generative AI, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. So what I was going to do is I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a demo. And please realize that I have no idea what I'm doing. And this is very rough, I guess, the best way to put it. So this is a tool called DALL-E, DALL-E. And so what I did here, I just want to show you real quick. You type in text as to what it is that you want, and then it generates images. And you have a lot of control. You can dictate the size, you can dictate all kinds of stuff. So what I did here, just for the fun of it, to speed it up a little bit, I put peanut brittle in a gold box on a table in a castle, 4K HDR. Okay. So this whole prompt business is its own art in science, right? How you get something out of this. And I'm not going to try to bore you with all those details because it's insanely complex and way above my pay grade. But I wanted to give you enough idea. So I put in this peanut brittle in a gold box on a table in a castle, and it generated these images. And the amazing thing is they're free to use. You don't have to pay anybody for these because they did not exist before this prompt. So I could even do something like so online drawing. So this will be relatively quick. So what I'm asking it to do, same prompt, except instead of it being in 4K and HDR, I'm asking it to essentially be a coloring book, one line
Dennis.
drawing.
Dennis, what screen should we be seeing right now? Because we see the website homepage.
Thank you. Oh boy, we'll get there.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, there we go. Okay, now you got it. Okay, now you see it. Okay. Did you guys see the gold box on the castle? Did that not show up?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, we'll go back to that in a second, but this is peanut brittle in a gold box on a table in a castle, one line drawing. And it came out as basically a line drawing. So it just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that's possible. This is the same prompt that I used, peanut brittle in a gold box on a table in a castle, only I said 4K and HDR, right? So I ran a few of these during class, so I'm just going to show you what I came up with. So this is elderberry. The command was elderberry juice in a hayfield, one line drawing. And you can do crazy stuff. Elderberry juice swimming in the ocean with fishes. I mean, there's no limit to what you can do. But this is an example of the line drawing. This one was same command, only I told it to be 4K and HDR. So it made this glass of elderberry juice in a hayfield. You could say in a hayfield during a snowstorm. And let's see what it does, just to give you an idea. It's not the world's fastest thing I've ever seen, but if you think about it, when you're doing a marketing campaign or emails, you can actually create exactly what you want as far as a story, images. You don't have to pay for an artist to come. Okay, so here's the same thing, the elderberry, only it's in so snow. It's not snowing, but it is snow in the picture. Just to give you an idea.
Dennis?
I'm sorry?
Can I give you one to try? I just want to see what it does.
Yeah, sure.
Could you do milk in a squeezable pouch with the screw on top?
Hold on, let me.
I've been wanting to try this.
Yeah, so there's a number of tools. I haven't really figured out which one I want to use. This one was kind of the first one, and there is a little bit of cost. It's very, very cheap. You're talking a penny or something per image. I'll read it out to me again.
Milk in a squeezable pouch.
Okay.
With a screw on top.
Yeah, I spelled squeezable wrong.
2 E's, not 2 Z's.
On top. Yeah. With a screw on, let's put it this way. Is that it?
Yeah, let's see. Let's see what it does.
Okay, let's try 4K HDR to start with. The last part of the command is you tell it what format you want. In this case, 4K HDR seems to work pretty well. Let's see what comes up. There you go. You
Okay.
see them?
Yep, I do. That's
Try
fine.
one more and just see if it'll come up with completely different ones this time. Once you get into it, you can put your logo in, you can put
Mhm.
some stuff in. I don't know how to do all that. I haven't spent a lot of time on this, but it's pretty crazy, the stuff you can do with it.
Yeah, it's really neat. I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna get on there and try different things.
Mm-hmm.
So you could do stuff like, tell the pouch to stand up, pouch standing up on a table with a drop shadow. I mean, you can go nuts with it. As far as, let me see if I can show you some of the other ones I've done just for the fun of it. So here's some I did of horses on ice. Totally unrelated. This I did for my grandson here. He likes to color. He just turned 3. So you can create coloring books or pages. I just basically email him these pages and his dad puts it together and the kid colors them. But he lives in London and he's really into Big Ben and all this kind of stuff. So you can create a whole coloring book if you really want to take your time and put it on, pages and, work it, I guess. You could do a lot of really cool things. Let's see what else I got on here. So this one is a little more sophisticated. This one is traveling on a river to a castle in Scotland that I happen to know, with a view of a coastline landscape. And then I've thrown some keywords in there: Scottish coastline, perspective, etc., folklore. You can go nuts with this, but you can see the pictures are pretty cool that came out of that. It's very atmospheric and quite realistic, I think. Let's see if I got anything else of interest that you all might like. This was Witch on a Broom, Halloween, photorealistic digital art. I don't know how realistic it is, but that's what came out. Let's see if I got any other worth sharing. Already shared that one. Oh, let's see here. Sorry, I'm trying to. Okay, so here, my grandson is, he loves our horses and the barn and all that. So here is 2 horses and a little boy in a hayfield with a barn, line drawing coloring book. So there's some weird things like, it'll make mistakes. Like someone will have 3 arms or 3 eyes and stuff like that. And that's all something you can kind of deal with over time, learn how to get all that stuff straight. This is called a positive prompt. So I'm telling it what to do. You can also do negative prompts to tell it what not to do. So if you create something like this and you say, I want a little girl in there too, and I can put in there not little boy as an example of a negative prompt. One other last thing, and I do not know how to do this, and it's not using this tool, but I want to share something with you. So this is one I did on grass-fed beef, and I called it Kitchen Product Photography. This is completely made up by the software. There's no such thing as these. I don't even know what this one is right here, if that even is beef. This kind of looks like beef. But the latest thing that's coming out is you'll be able to edit it by using text. So once you create the photo, you would then put in, say, please remove the middle stake and make the cutting block a third bigger, and make the background blue. And it will make all those changes to this picture just with text, as an example. So that's a different tool that I haven't downloaded and played around with yet, but it's amazing how fast this is progressing. But from your all's perspective, from a marketing and a graphics perspective for social media posting, for a lot of stuff that you do, this has a lot of potential. This is chocolate candy, kitchen product photography sessions. So you get an idea of the potential of this. The company is called it's openai.com is where you go to sign up for DALL-E. They also have another tool called ChatGPT that you might be familiar with. It's getting a lot of publicity. That's where you tell the system, like, for example, I'd like to send an email to all customers that tells them about our product, but in a non-preachy way. I'm just making this up. And it will actually write for you the words for your email automatically. That's not images, that's text. You can also put in a URL, like let's say it's a book on gardening, and you can ask it, please tell me the highlights of this book. And it will give you a detail or a bullet point. Here's what this book is about. You can also tell it to give you Excel formulas. You need an Excel formula to figure out the best price for these 3 products. And it will do that calculation for you, and it'll give you the formula to put into Excel, for example. So I wanted to just give you guys an idea of what was happening in this.
And that's all free to use?
Yeah, the way it works, yes, those are all free. They're free to a point, right? If you start using it pretty heavily, they're going to charge you something. But in the case of this one, it's literally, I think I bought 100 credits for $10. That's 100 images. I think that's right. It may have even been $1. I can't remember. Very, very cheap. And there are lots of these out there. This is just one of them. There's several of these tools. The text one right now is free. They are coming out with a paid version that's going to be a little more robust. But in terms of writing things, analyzing things, it's available. But I'm just going to give you a little preview of something. I'm not going to get into detail. I'm going to make this a class. But what you can actually do is you can connect both of these software pieces, and you can use it to populate your Shopify site. You can use it to pull inventory, pull products, automatically update descriptions, product names, all kinds of functionality that works with Shopify. And I will give a little, once I learn that, I'll give you a demonstration. It's insane how fast, how much you can do with a tool like that. No more manual dealing with that kind of stuff. Or it's an option to not have to do it manually. But that will be coming. So there's a lot of hoopla going on in this space. I'm sure you all, if you put into let's just do google.com and put in chat GPT. Um, 873 million results on ChatGPT. What they're doing is somebody used it to take a test at Wharton in the MBA school, and the software got a B on the test. They're using it to write essays, and the schools are trying to figure out how the hell to stop them. You can see here, professors are freaking out, worries about cheating. There's all kinds of stuff about it. Microsoft just invested $10 billion into this company, and th're going to add this functionality to all of their products, including Excel, Word, their databases, et cetera. So you're going to be hearing a lot more about this. I know you can't see that. I'm going through this and you can't even see it. So let me share my screen again. Sorry.
Who owns the company, Dennis? Do you know anything about the founders?
I do. So surprise, surprise, Elon Musk is one of them.
Ah, okay.
The main guy is a guy named Sam Altman. And Sam is the founder of Y Combinator, which I talk about.
Uh-huh.
Y Combinator is an accelerator. We're going to be using a lot of their materials. Class goes on. I'm on the Techstars part right now, but we'll be using Y Combinator stuff as well. But it's a group of people who invested in 2018 that includes Elon Musk and some other people. But you can see here that Microsoft is investing 10 billion and they're going to put it in all of their products, supposedly. They had already invested 3 billion prior to this. So they put $13 billion into it. Now, the thing that's interesting about this from my perspective, and I don't mean to bore everyone to death, I'm a little geeky, as you can tell. Google claims that their AI is far superior. They just have not released it to the public because they're afraid of it. Which is interesting, right? And what they've done, because this is happening, Microsoft is going to put this into their Bing search engine, if you're familiar with Bing. Google is freaking out because it will make Bing 100 times better than the Google search engine. So it's a lot of stuff is happening here. It's a real page turner in terms of change that's coming. But Google has brought back the two founders, Sergey Brin, and I forget the other guy's name, Page, I think, Larry Page, I think. They brought them both back out of retirement to lead this effort to compete with OpenAI. But supposedly they've been working on secretly for 10 years. It has learning capacity. It can learn stuff. This is what they're scared of. What in the hell will it learn? And what will it do with that knowledge? So it's a real ethical quandary for people that are in this space. But I did want to introduce you guys to it. There may be some things here. There may be, just like you might find an advisor to build a website or to help you in other things, you may end up finding somebody who can write good prompts. Appropriate prompts will save you time, get you what you need in terms of photos or other uses that you might have for it. But it's coming pretty quickly. I've not seen. I've just never seen a deal where a major company like Microsoft invests $10 billion and doesn't buy the company. In fact, their $10 billion just gives them a tiny percentage, is my understanding. I just never seen that before. So I wanted to just make you all aware of that for what it's worth.
Dennis, Samara had a question in the chat. She said,
Thank
does
you.
anyone here
I'm terrible about keeping up with that. Okay.
It's okay. She said, does anybody have a plugin or an app? An app, software, or Shopify plugin you like that helps to track pre-orders or subscriptions?
There may be somebody here better qualified to me. I know that Shopify has a couple of subscription apps. I keep hearing about one called Recharge. Seems to be a lot of people use that. But if you just Google subscription apps for Shopify, you'll get a list of the ones that are on there.
But I always like to get a personal referral for what's working for y'all.
What's
That's all.
that?
I know they exist. I'm just wondering if anybody here is using one that they like.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We can stick that in the Facebook group and see if some of the other past students respond. I don't know anyone doing subscriptions off the top of my head. But one of the beauty of the Shopify platform is you can try these apps usually for free on a trial basis and get a sense. But I do know a lot of people, and what you can do, you can go on the Shopify App Store and you can see the number of downloads and the ratings and all that kind of stuff. That'll help you. But there's two main ones in subscription. I can't remember the name of the other one, but those are ones to look at if you're using Shopify. It's one of the reasons I recommend Shopify is because as you grow, there's always something, right, that you need. And in general, Shopify is going to have the answer without you having to build it from scratch. That's been my experience, but I don't know if anyone else has tried subscriptions or not.
Thank you, April, for bringing that to the attention too. I appreciate it.
No
Yeah.
problem. No problem.
Thanks, April.
No problem.
You're
Let me-
hired, girl.
I do have a question though, and I know we're kind of at time, so we need to offline then as we can, but it was on the topic of the category king.
Yeah.
One of my issues that I'm having is that like we have pivoted since our original plan with our business, which was to come out with the dissolvable infant formula tablet. That's something we still plan to do. It's just going to take longer, more funding, more research. And so we're working on that on the back end. But to get, increased speed to market and to go ahead and start accumulating revenue, we decided to put out the ready-made version of our formula. And my thing is, how do you create yourself or establish yourself as a category king when you have to do such a pivot? And this is really not where we're trying to capitalize. We're not trying to be the best, ready-made formula. We know where we're going, and the future is what we're making as far as the dissolvable tablet. That's where we want to become the category king. But so how do we compete right now at this level, knowing that this isn't finite? No, you know what I mean? Knowing this is just the first.
Well, I think you're confusing different products with a category, right? So the category is I'm making this up. I haven't done all the work, but let's just say it's vegan baby formula. That's the category. And as a category king, you may have several formats that your product and service is delivered. It's not the product format that is the category.
I got you.
So kind of forget about that, right? Just really focus on what is your category and how can you be the category king in that arena? And my guess is there's very few people in that category right now. I guess I don't know. Like I said, I haven't done the work. But category is more about what you're doing in terms of a perspective of your strategy as a company. Your product formats, you may end up with 10 different formats over time.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, thank you. That helps.
Good. Yeah, it's one of the things I've always struggled with because I'm half Polish. So is the idea of the difference between strategy and tactics. That used to drive me crazy when I was in school. I would constantly mix up, and the professor would go, no, that's a tactic. That's not a strategy. So it's really important to understand the difference between kind of the big picture and the overall strategy, and then the tactics to implement that strategy, the process steps. And they're not the same thing. They're two different things.
Okay.
So
that really helps me. Thank you so much.
One other thing I'll just throw at you. I don't know if you've ever heard of a company called Byte.
Someone else mentioned that. Is that's the toothpaste, right? The toothpaste?
It is, but they're coming out with a whole bunch of other products, is my understanding. I haven't really kept up on it. I do know that the founder is an ECU alum. So I don't know if we can connect you with her or somebody at the Miller School probably knows her. I don't know her at all.
Carlisle, I think you might know Carlisle.
I know him well. Yeah.
Yeah, he tried to connect me with her and gave me what he thought to be her email address. I just never was able to connect with her or hear back anything. So I'll keep trying. But yeah, if you know anyone else,
try LinkedIn. Try LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn is a great way to find people. And the other thing you'll find on LinkedIn is you'll find groups. Like one of them is Startup CPG. I think we've talked about before. Startup CPG is a group that our friend Andy Kurtz is in. And it's a bunch of people like you all, people who have consumer product goods company. Most of them startups or early. I bet she's a part of that group or somebody there knows her, LinkedIn, I don't know if you remember, I lose track of time. I guess it was Monday when we watched that video about the chef from Pittsburgh that's doing pasta.
Uh-huh.
Basically said he sits at a coffee shop from 9 to 11 every single day, going through LinkedIn, cold contacting people that he thinks that he can help or can help him.
I love it.
Um,
Love it.
So almost everyone is out there somewhere in a way that you can connect with them and contact them. Certainly in business, anyone trying to build a business has got to be open to that. And LinkedIn is, to me, the most common way to find those people. Sometimes you find them in Facebook if they're old like me, or Instagram, all that other stuff. You can find them. They're TikTok. They're out there somewhere.
Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. So that's it for today. I'll try to put into chat if I can figure out how to do it. When I make my screen smaller than, okay, now it reappeared. Okay, chat reappeared. Okay. I'll put this OpenAI in here. Let's see. OpenAI for the artificial intelligence stuff. So hopefully that will get to everybody. All right. Well, we'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for coming in today.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
Bye.